I think that first year of working together was really challenging on a relationship level for us.
And that was when we first noticed that we had very, very different personality styles, very different ways of working. Yeah, you know, we clashed a bit.
I would say we clashed a lot. You drove me absolutely mental. I was really questioning what the hell I was doing.
I think just in that answer, you've covered a whole load of topics there that we can probably explore in a little bit more.
This isn't even rehearsed, right? This isn't even rehearsed as a couple. We're like, oh, let's just open a can of worms.
Let's just go there. Hi, and welcome to This Property Life, the podcast brought to you by Property Wealth System. I'm Nick Claydon, property mentor and trainer. And today I have with me the gorgeous Caroline, who is my other half.
Well, you've got to say that.
I've got to say that. So welcome, Caroline. And today we're going to talk about a very contentious subject, I think, something we come across a lot during our property training, which is, can a couple work together in business and keep the romance alive with everything that's going on and everything that entails running a business together? Something that we have a lot of experience of. So I'm just going to go straight in. Caroline, can a couple work together and keep the romance alive?
Still working on it. It's very challenging, you know, and I think a lot of the answer to that question depends on what the relationship was like before they work together. And what they're actually they're working together for. So it's not a straightforward yes and no question, but of course, if the couple love each other and they have shared goals and they're working towards the same purpose, it doesn't matter how differently they work. Of course, if the underpinning connection is love and romance, then that can be maintained. But I think maybe we need some marriage counselor on this as well at the same time.
Quite possibly. I think just in that answer, you've covered a whole load of topics there that we can probably explore in a little bit more.
This isn't even rehearsed, right? This isn't even rehearsed as a couple. We're like, oh, let's just open a can of worms.
Let's just go there. Let's just absolutely go there. All right. Firstly, I think, well, you mentioned lots of things. You mentioned shared vision. You mentioned different personality. But let's start with shared vision. Because I think, anyway, in my experience as a mentor over the last 15 years, the thing I see most, I think, when I work with couples is if you don't have that shared vision, you are going to struggle, I think, because as we know and as we teach, property investing isn't just about let's go and buy a couple of houses. It is actually a whole lifestyle choice, a whole lifestyle decision. That property is just a vehicle to get you somewhere where you want to go. So unless as a couple you are trying to go to the same place, the property isn't going to do it for you.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is probably the number one, shared vision and goals.
I mean, I don't think even couples talk about that.
You're right.
I think when they get together romantically, it's all about, well, first of all, are they attracted to the other person? Do they have things in common? Are they interested in the same stuff? Do they have the same values? That is more what brings a couple together. And maybe there'll be a little bit of future chat about, you know, do they want to have kids? Where do they want to live? You know, that kind of thing. Dreams and aspirations about where they go on holiday. But beyond that, I'm not sure couples sit down and talk about a shared vision, because that's a very business related activity. And so I guess just by even saying that, what's our shared vision? That's not particularly romantic a conversation.
Yeah, no, you're right. It isn't. But I think it can become that when you actually sit down and think about, what are our shared values? What is it that we are trying to do? You know, once you know that you're with someone that you want to spend your life with, it, you know, if you look at it, if you kind of zoom out and look at it from above, it's like, well, why wouldn't you sit down and talk about what you want your life to look like in 5, 10, 15 years time?
Yeah.
it's so easy. I see it so often that, you know, the couples will get into just this day-to-day routine, and you know, if you want to have a better word, drudgery of, you know, you just get through the days. Especially when you've got young kids, you know, there's pickups, drop-offs, you know, after school activities, there, you know, your time just like gone. And it's so easy to, you know, you can lose years like that really quickly, can't you?
That's exactly what happens. And this is why you hear about couples who maybe have been married 20 years suddenly divorcing. You're like, could you not have made that decision a little earlier? You know, because they probably go through that routine, and the teamwork is the bringing up the kids to be happy, healthy, balanced. And then when the kids leave, it's like, do we still even like each other? What do we have in common anymore? Because they haven't been maybe necessarily working towards an exterior goal out with the kids part.
Not having an actual life plan. You know, what are we going to, you know, I think people should be thinking when their kids are young, what are we going to do when they are through school and away? But I don't think enough people talk about that and think about that. And you know, it just kind of arrives and happens. You're like, oh shit, what do we do now? Whereas I think, you know, I really try and when I work with couples, is to really try and get them thinking now. And often, you know, if I look back on a lot of mentorships I've done, I think the first like 30 minutes to an hour of meeting someone in the field in their location is, you know, they sit down, they go, right, you know, can we go and buy some properties? I'm like, well, no. Firstly, is why are we here? Oh, to buy some houses. Really? Is that why we're here? Okay, let's really look at why we actually here. What's brought you to this point? What you know, anyone can go and buy houses. That's easy, right? You can go buy a house if you want, buy to let, whatever. But when you get people thinking about what is the actual bigger picture here, what is the actual plan, that's when you see a lot of emotion come through, and that's when, you know, people can really buy into the whole lifestyle choice and decision. We're not just here to buy houses, we're here to actually create a completely different life, and property is the method and the vehicle by which we do it. And you see people change, you know, and it's a fascinating process, actually.
You often talk about mentorships where people, you know, cry. They are genuinely emotional because it's like shining a really magnified mirror on their lives, and they might not like what they see, and that then lights the fire within them to really put the oil in the engine and motor it forward. I feel very uncomfortable when someone, you know, asks genuine questions, but, you know, the kind of question of how are you doing? Everyone says fine, good, yeah, even though they might not be. And then just having someone spend that time and then think about that bigger picture of, how's your life going to pan out? How are you going to live this life? That's something I don't think we as human beings spend an awful lot of time thinking about and planning and creating a vision around.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? But okay, so probably the listeners thinking, okay, well, all right, guys, how did you do it? So how did we do it? How did we kind of take that leap, and what are we trying to do here? What is our life plan? I can think of a moment in time where we sat down and did that.
Well, I remember we were both in our jobs that we weren't particularly enamored with, and we were like, oh, I don't like working for these guys. And every single like business idea we came up with, we were like, we don't really know how to do that. We don't know how to do it. It's the how-to was the thing that stopped us. And then when we boiled it all down, it was, well, we do know how to make money doing recruitment. So even though we're not that passionate about it, how about we just do that? That means that we can at least work for ourselves and buy ourselves some time and make some money. That was the first process. And I think that first year of working together, building that recruitment business was really challenging on a relationship level for us. I mean, we weren't engaged. We'd only been together maybe a couple of years by that point, year and a half, couple of years. You'd moved up to Edinburgh, you know, so there's a big transition for you moving to Edinburgh. Then, you know, we're leaving our comfortable salary jobs, and then we're working out of my flat on a little mobile phone.
In a little box room.
you had the box room, I was in the lounge or whatever.
You started off in the box room. You migrated to the lounge.
Yeah, I think we realized the box room was just not big enough for the two of us.
Yeah, I think we had all these kind of, you know, romantic visions of sitting side by side at a desk and working through the day, and you know, and then we'd go out for dinner in the evening, and it was all lovely. And the stark reality was, we learned really quickly that, I think that's when we first noticed our personality styles. We're like, whoa, this is completely different. Like, how you work is like, whoa, I don't know how you do that. And you're looking at me thinking, what are you doing? How are you doing? Or why are you doing it that way? Yeah. And that was when we first noticed that we had very, very different personality styles, very different ways of working. Yeah, you know, we clashed a bit.
I would say we clashed a lot. You drove me absolutely mental. I was really questioning what the hell I was doing. So I'm very fast-paced, very immediate, very impulsive. I won't think things through. I will make mistakes, but I'll get lots and lots done, and I will not stop until everything's finished to my ability. And even if that's finishing at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, I am still going. And then you will take 2 hours to send one email to make sure that it's absolutely accurate and perfect. And I was flabbergasted. And the other thing that drove me mental was, come 4:30, 5 o'clock, you're like, I'm done for the day. You know, my brain needs to switch off now. I'm looking at you going, part-timer, what are you doing?
But you're missing out the fact that I started at 7 a.m. and you and I couldn't, you would not be spoken to until probably about 9:30, 10. So by the time I'd got to 4 or 5 o'clock, I'd done an extra 3 hours. You were like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, have you forgotten this morning when you didn't get out of bed till 10 o'clock? So, you know, it was that whole kind of, you know, learning about our different styles and the way we do things. And that actually, you know, we were better suited to different roles. Yeah, we were trying to do the same thing. And actually, if you kind of, again, zoom out and look at it from above, you'd think, well, why are you both trying to do that when your personality style should do this bit and mine should do this bit?
Well, I think the first challenge was, of course, that business stopping overnight. I mean, the only long-term plan we had was, cool, we work for ourselves now. We don't need to answer to anyone. We're excited about that. That was the real #1 goal. We didn't have any sort of ambitions or targets for how much we wanted to earn, but we knew that any money that we were left over with, we wanted to put into property. I think that was pretty much the crux of the plan. It wasn't any more detailed than that, or
no, because we only knew property the one way. You know, we both, well, I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it was always in the back of my mind, like, that's what I want to do. But I couldn't see past how do you get all the money together to do it. So that's why we did recruitment. It was like, look, brilliant, this is our plan. We'll do this thing that we know how to do. We'll make excess money and we'll park that money into property, and over time we'll build up a portfolio and blah blah blah, and you know, retire to the beach. That was kind of it. That's as far as we really got.
Yeah,
it was only when I think the reality of 2008-9, when that hit, it was like, shit, okay, now we need to like get serious about this and do something else.
And we did flounder about that, because, you know, the response from the people around us when you're in a recession and you're doing a recruitment business and no one's recruiting is, just keep working hard, it'll be okay. This is short term. It's everything's short term, everything's short term. But it wasn't getting any better. And then we started to look at recruitment jobs overseas. Do you remember we were actually thinking about going to Singapore, because Singapore wasn't hit that hard by that recession and there was still recruitment jobs out there. So I remember looking at apartment blocks in Singapore going, could I live there? Yeah, nice sunny weather. But my heart just was not in that at all. Yeah, that was kind of desperate times. And I think we were just thinking, we need some money in, we need some money in, we need some money in. And we didn't know where we were going to get it. But
we talked about property because we knew that was kind of the longer term. We want to park money in property and that. And I remember very clearly sitting, I think we had on the last kind of dying days of the recruitment business, we're out recruiting candidates in Kuala Lumpur, I think.
Yep.
And we'd just had a disastrous kind of recruitment fair. And we were sat around this pool about to go home the next day. It all sounds very glam, but it really wasn't, because we didn't have the money really to be there. You know, we were there to get the candidates to make money from when we got back. And we were faced with the reality of this, and we were like, what we're going to do. So we talked a bit about property, and we said, well, look, we need to learn. What do we do here? We knew people that own like 20, 30 flats in Edinburgh, and we're like, how do they actually do that? Yeah. Okay, let's try and find out. So it started with a question. Right, we need to get different. We need to get serious now. We're not going back to recruitment jobs. Well, there aren't any. So it's like, what do we go and stack some shelves somewhere, or what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And we really had that conversation. So that was the reality of, well, okay, there's got to be a better way. So property, okay, we'll both get that. We're both into that. And I remember you said, right, you research networking meetings. I'm literally going to go to the bookstore now and get some real estate investing books.
Yeah.
And I went and I remember the books I got. There was one by Gary Keller called Real Estate Investing, and it was American, but it was still relevant. And the other one I got was Increase Your Financial IQ by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
I came back and I read that one first because it was smaller. And it was just like absolutely, I'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad a few years before. I read that one. It was much more succinct. It was just like, this is more of a how-to. Said I read it in about an hour and a half. I gave it to you, and I said you have to read that. And you don't, at that point you didn't really read books. You did, so you read it. You were like, right, that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
I remember that really. And then I'm pretty sure that evening or one after, we sat down in a bar in KL
with a journal book. I went and bought a journal book that was blank, and I said, right, what do we actually want to achieve? Now, at that point, we had 7 buy-to-lets that weren't actually making us much money. And we were like, can you imagine if we had 10? If we had 10, that would be amazing. Only purely because we knew how long it had taken us to get those 7. We thought, realistically, in this financial position, how on earth are we going to get another 1, let alone another 3? So 10 in total seemed like mind-blowing to us at that point. And then we just wrote down the actions that we were going to take when we got home. And it was like, reach out to everyone that we know that does property investing and find out how they did it. And we attended a networking event that said, showed us a cash flow calculation, again, which we didn't know, even though we had property. And they said, if you want to know more about this, there's a free 2-hour seminar, I guess, that's happening next week if you want to go to it. And that's really where this whole thing started, getting educated by people, years ahead of us. And the rest, as they say, is history. I think that first year, our sole goal was cover our expenses, just cover the expenses, and then we'll deal with the debt later, right? Yeah. Just get to that $3,000 a month, cover expenses. That's debt service, lifestyle service, everything sorted. And then we'll deal with the debt after. So as a vision, that's fairly simple.
But I do remember sitting down, we were still in that bar when we wrote it out. And then I started, my analytical brain kicked in, and it was like, right, let's extrapolate these numbers. And let's see, what if we had 20, 30, what would that look like? What would that do? And at the moment, all we knew about property investing was that, the simple buy-to-let stuff. So the thought of scaling was there. And, and I don't know, I can't remember actually having the conversation like this is our life plan, but we just kind of did it. It was just like, this is what we're going to do. It would already, I think, made the decision that, this is what we're going to do together. We're both going to do it. Both going to do it.
I think another very clear memory for me is once we had got that financial security and the majority of the debt gone, we were on another holiday. I think it was Tenerife, and we were sitting and we had that same book. We're like, okay, so that worked. Let's now the next step. And I remember very clearly saying, this is where I want to live. We didn't have kids. I don't even know if we were married at that point. I had the dog. I had Archie, so that was, goal achieved with Archie. But this is where I want to live. This is the car I want to drive. This is the school I want my kids to go to. This is how much money I want to spend on getting my nails and my hair done. And and it was way more meat on the bones at that point, and writing it all out.
We wrote a list of about 30 things, I think.
Yeah,
30 things, and then we put it into a kind of a vision board. I wasn't into vision boards and all that stuff then. I thought it was a load of kind of wishy-washy woohoo stuff. But honestly, I look back on that list and we wrote it, And we were a million miles away from most of those things on that list. There were a few quick wins, like get a Westie. That was not a difficult one. We could tick that one off quite quickly. But other things like the house, where we wanted to live and all those, they were a million miles away.
Yeah, the house was, I just, again, I couldn't see how that was going to pan out, because at that point, our kind of target house was like 600 grand. And so to get a resi mortgage when you were self-employed with a few properties was like near impossible. We obviously spent considerably more than that on the house, but yeah, it's knowing the destination and then working out how to get there, which is important. So I think, holidays are fantastic for getting away from the hustle bustle and actually sitting, reflecting and saying, right, next, what's the goal? How many holidays have you been walking up and down the beach going, right, this is what we need next, boom, boom, boom. And then you get such clarity. I think it's very tricky to do that in the busyness of your life. And in fact, our accountant just last week when we met her said, one day a month, you need to put aside, go to a bar or restaurant, sit down and literally just plan. And I thought, God, I tell people to do that. Why do we not do that? That's right enough. We probably need to, get that into our lives as a steady. It's so easy to fall out of that habit.
Yeah. But the power in that exercise that we did when we sat, I still remember when we did that. I've still got the list. The power in that exercise was A, write it down. B, like going through it and saying, is this really what we want? Are we both on board with this? Whilst you were, I want to live in this particular area within half a mile of where I grew up. That's fine. I'd moved up for London, so I wasn't fussed about that. But what I was fussed about was the type of house and how, and more about the lifestyle of living in a house like that in that area. And I do remember visualizing how, I talk about this a lot on the course that we do. I was talking about this on our Power Up course, which is all for new investors, kind of really getting them motoring. And it's just the power of having that actual vision of what your life is going to be, right? So not just things you want, but actually the more powerful stuff is visualizing what does my life look like. And I remember clearly visualizing the house I'm going to be in. I'm going to come downstairs in the morning. I'm going to make a cup of tea in the morning, look out at my kitchen island and out into a garden where I can't see another house, greenery, and all. I visualized all that. And if I think about our house as it is now, that's pretty much how it is.
Yeah.
But more than that, it was, what am I actually doing on a daily basis? And, how do people see me, what they see me as? Years ago, it was, oh, Nick's a recruiter. But now it's like, I think a lot of people say, well, Nick's in property, or he does property development, or he's a property mentor. And that's what I visualized, as well as just the things. It was the life. I remember we were on a course very early on, and we thought about it. A guy came in, he said he was a mentor, and he was talking with authority about all these ways he helped people in property. And I remember telling you, I'm going to do that. I want to be that. I want to be that guy. Yeah. So that kind of brought all into the vision. It brought lots of things together, but it was a longer term plan. That list that we wrote, and put into a vision board, was probably a 5-6 year plan.
Yeah. And some of the stuff we got quicker, and some of the stuff took longer. Yeah. But we always got there. We always get what we want. It's now that we've got that formula and we know it works. And when you listen to books like Arnold Schwarzenegger's book about being useful and the power of visualization and focus, it so works. It so works. And I think when I'm surrounded by my friends who are not property investors, and the school moms and people that I meet who are in this spinning plates, busy life, and they're maybe a bit disgruntled about this or that. I think it's because they don't know where it's headed. Where's the end point? What's it working towards? Yeah.
And I think that's where the romance comes in. It's just like, look, this is not just a plan for the next week or month or year. This is like our entire life plan.
Yeah.
So they're going to be hard times, but actually, look, we are trying to get to a point where we've achieved this together and done it together.
It's very challenging, though, to actually remain a married couple with the romance, as well as all the business and talking vision and all of that stuff, I think it's very challenging because the lines get blurred.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being really frank about it. I hope people can relate to it, that, you know, as a woman, particularly, I don't think that you have the same challenge, Nick, no offense, but you have so many masks. You are the mum that is so on top of the school admin. You are then the business person who's then sitting in front of a banker or an agent trying to get them to take you seriously. You're then the funny, supportive friend that is going to go out and have fun. And then you're this the homemaker that's keeping the house tidy and all of that stuff, which I feel miserably at. And then the business element of, is the systems in place, is the admin done, and are we still on track for the vision? Like, it's knackering. So where in that whole process is the wife romantic bit? It's really hard, really, really hard. But we got some help, didn't we? And well, when I say that, I read a book that had some tips and tricks that we've started to implement, which have actually been quite good. Well, will I share them? Will I share? Yeah. So obviously this has been playing on my mind a while, and I talked to you about it. Again, when you're busy, I don't know if you actually make time to sit down and talk about the bigger picture stuff. But this book had talked about communication dates. Now, we're pretty rubbish at date nights, aren't we? We don't really do date nights. Like, that's just another thing.
Ahead, you know, but yeah.
Well, it's just another to-do list. And I think because we work together and we see each other all the time, we're like, do we need that? But actually, this book talked about communication dates. And when I read further into it, it talked about how you schedule in just even half an hour where you sit down and you talk about, well, anything that might not, and you know, not business related, not family or kids related, not what needs to be done related, just about how you're feeling, what's going on with you. And again, that's quite an uncomfortable thing to do. And again, I don't know if it's a Scottish thing or
just it's really hard to switch off, you know, because you said we're so used to just kind of, you know, what needs to be done now, today, you know, what's going on. That's our communication mainly during the day is things that need to be done. But if you do take the time, you know, I'll take time to just go for a dog walk, take dogs out. And that's our kind of time out in, you know, take them to the park, up to the woods and get a bit of nature.
Yeah, reflect. And it's good to reflect away from, again, the busyness and everything else.
Yeah, and you know, we have done date nights, and it's good to do that and try and stop the talk heading towards business. But because it's so intrinsically linked, that's the problem. Is, you know, everything that we're doing is
intrinsically linked.
It's all linked. You know, it's our life plan. It is the main bulk of what we talk about, because you know, we've got things you want to achieve. And I come back to alignment, and where I see couples go wrong, I think, with this is they're not aligned on the life plan. Yeah, they're not aligned on big picture. It's, I'm in this job and I'm in this job, and we've got the kids, and we're, you know, we have that, and we have where we live and our friends and that. But in terms of where we're actually going, where we're trying to get to as a couple or as a family unit, I don't see it a lot of the time. And that's purely down to not sitting down and talking about exactly that. What are we trying to achieve here? But if you don't know where you're trying to get to, how do you know which direction to head in?
Yeah, I think, communication, clarity is really, really important. And then making that time for the romance, even if it's just actually sitting and eating together at the same time, even that, that's winning.
Yeah, it is winning. But, you know, there are times when it is a bit calmer, and we can, you know, holidays are really important to us. So we do take time on holidays. You know, that's kind of a non-negotiable for us, is that we try and get away every kid's holiday, do something, and just get that time when you're not surrounded by all the things that need to be done. But what about, you know, what there's somebody out there thinking, well, look, I would get this, I love all this, but my partner's not really supportive of me doing my property stuff, or they're a bit dismissive of it. it's a bit kind of, oh, how's that going to help? You know, how does someone in that position, how do you think they can?
Yeah, well, we see this a lot, right? We see this a lot where one is really driven to do the property stuff, and the other partner is happy, content doing the job and getting the salary, the stability, and doesn't really buy into the whole property thing. Or they're supportive. Yeah, you go off and do that, and I'll just carry on doing all of that. So there's a couple of
a little bit dismissive.
Someone that's dismissive, that is probably one of the hardest, most challenging situations that we see our students in. I fundamentally always bring it back down to where their values for each other align, or maybe there's a disconnect. There's a couple of options. So if you've broached the subject, I want to be a property investor, I want to build a property business, and they're like, nah, I don't want you risking my house or my money or any of that stuff. Fine. Okay. So they're stonewall, not into it. One option is do it and don't tell them. That's a tricky one. The second option is do it, tell them, and deal with, the friction. The third option is do it, tell them, and then slowly but surely just edge them into the business to show them how you're doing it and what results you're getting. And then the fourth option is don't do it and let them all be comfortable and no change and keep the peace and keep the status quo.
There is a fifth option as well.
And the fifth option is, of course, leave them.
Oh, are you with the right person? If you're fundamentally disaligned or unaligned, I don't know which one is grammatically correct. I'm sure someone will correct me.
Misaligned, I think.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. So if you're fundamentally misaligned, then you've got to question everything and look. Can we get aligned? Firstly, can we turn this around and get aligned? But if not, if you are fundamentally misaligned, there are big questions there. Because if you're passionate about something and somebody else is stopping you, blocking you from achieving that, that's
there's a disconnect. I can think of a student of mine. He may even be listening. He's now a father and son team, and his wife was absolutely dead against it. She actually did come to the 3-day course, the introductory course, but she only stayed day one and then spent the other 2 days up in the hotel room with a migraine. And when her husband decided that he was going to do this, the whole train journey home, which was 2.5 hours, was spent with her telling him that he'd been ripped off, that, he shouldn't be doing it. Now, this is, I would say, 7 years ago now.
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
And she still doesn't like property. She still doesn't want any part of it. She's still not interested in it at all. But she sees how her husband and her son are working together, enjoying the fruits of their labor. But she just is freaked out by the risk element of it. And just, I think the conversation was, I love you, I respect you, but you got to let me do this. Which is actually quite a nice way of framing it, because she's probably sitting there going, I don't like this, but I do love him. I do respect him. I'm going to let him do it, but I ain't happy about it. And that's the only case that I am aware of where the partner has not eventually come around and gone, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, but I think that is fundamentally there. I think they must have as the life plan in place. It's just a vehicle. Remember, like, property is not the thing. Property is just a vehicle that gets you to the life plan that you want. It's just another way. There are other ways of doing it. It just happens we teach property. But there are other ways in which you can, there are not many really, to be fair, but there are some. But property is just a way that you achieve the life plan. So I think with them it's like the life plan is there, but the fear is just around property. And the more but there are other cases that I know of, where the life plan hasn't been fundamentally there, and those relationships haven't survived.
Yeah.
And what I found is very quickly that person has found somebody where the life plan does align. Because if you're passionate about it and you want, it's not just about property, you're not passionate about property, but you're passionate about creating a different life.
Yeah.
and improving your circumstances,
Yeah.
that's a big thing, you know, and you got the person you're with has got to be aligned with that. Because if somebody's happy, totally 100% happy with the status quo, but the other person wants more, that's a tough one.
And there are plenty of people that we've met over the years where they want to go to work, they like their job, they like the security of that salary every month, they don't want more.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, there's no judgment around that, but that's, you know, for someone who is looking for absolutely pushing themselves consistently and achieving more than what they currently have, that can't coexist. Those two opposites. Now I know opposites attract personality wise, for sure.
Yes.
But like we say, planning for how they live their lives, if that's not similar, then yeah, there's some real challenges there.
Just on that personality type thing, like if I look at a lot of the successful couples that have come through our training and gone on to be really successful, there are some common themes there. In terms of personality styles, you often find there's a real kind of yin and yang situation going on, where you have one personality type that is maybe, well, let's look at you and I, for example. So, you know, you're a driver socializer. For anyone that knows those kind of personality types, I think it's Myers-Briggs, is it that one? Anyway, there's a few, but generally people have 4 personality styles, or a mixture of 4, but you have 2 dominant traits. So yours would be much more kind of like pure driver, right? Which is do it now, immediately, this second, let's like immediately get on with it and do it. Socializer, you know, you love fun and being out there and, you know, mixing people. You could walk into a room of people, you know, you don't know and be instantly at ease and talk to anyone about anything. Whereas I'm more of an analytical driver. So I still like to do things, but I'd like to think about it first. And I like to make sure what we're doing is aligned and correct. And, you know, and I will do the research. So if we're looking at a property, for example, you'll say, look, you research it, you do all that bit. I just want to buy it. And I remember when we started going into the hotels business, it was like, I literally read an article in a magazine and said, right, I think we should do this. This is what I want to do. Read that. And you literally read about the first paragraph and right, okay, let's do that. And then you immediately turned to your mum and said, we're buying a hotel this year. I was like, literally, I just told you 2 minutes ago.
That's my impulsive.
Yeah. But, you know, that's really important, because that means that we do take loads of action when sometimes I would, you know, be a bit more hesitant.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure we do it safely. So I want to make sure the numbers are correct and all of those kinds of things. So I think if we look at, you know, other people that we know really well, like Sarah and Rick, who also host on this podcast, they are
opposites.
So basically Rick is you and Sarah is me. Alex and Paul, they're very, very different.
Paul, Donna and Trev.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a consistent theme, I think.
We do have a number of people, though, in our team who are doing it on their own and their partners aren't involved. So Andrea's partner's not involved in her property business at all, just lets her get on with it. James's partner is not involved in the business. She's a teacher. She just lets them get on with it. And Helena's partner. Yeah, so lots of our team, they're driving it, but partners in the background doing their thing and just gets what their partner's doing. So
well, I think my plan is probably there with those.
Yeah. So you can do, I think the message here is very clear that you can absolutely do this on your own without your partner helping you or hindering you in some cases. And equally, you can get the partnership aligned ultimately if the vision is in a similar vein, regardless of if you like the way each other works or not. The romance element, that's a whole other piece on the side that you just have to attack like a business and go, we need to make time for this. We have to create that and make that happen in our busy schedules.
You have to be disciplined about it, I think. You have to acknowledge that is important. It's very easy for that to just kind of slide with everything going on. Yeah. But I think you absolutely can maintain that romance, that sense of, you know, togetherness, and we're doing it together. That's what I keep going on about, but that is why the life plan is so important. You have to have that. Without that, you're just drifting in different directions.
Yeah.
But I think those people who are maybe doing the property side on their own and their partner is supportive but not involved,
Yeah.
I would say most of those people are successful because they're in the network and they take advantage of the network. They're all friends of ours. You know, we all see them a lot of the time. They get that time with like-minded people. Like you and I, although we're fundamentally different personalities, we are like-minded in what we want to achieve and do. But if you're on your own, you need to find that. You need someone you can talk to a lot and be in a network with like-minded people who get what you're doing.
Yeah, brilliant.
All right, so Caroline, how can people get hold of you? How can they get hold of us and talk to us?
Well, I'm on all the socials. So I'm Caroline Claydon.property on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Apparently I'm now on TikTok. On LinkedIn. Yes, I've now outsourced my social media to someone that knows what they're doing. So I'm on all the socials, right through from LinkedIn to TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. And you can message me on any of those platforms and attend any of the webinars that I'm holding.
Yeah, you can always get through to that propertywealthsystem.co.uk. I'm also on the socials. I'm not probably as active as Caroline, but you can always connect with me on Instagram at Nick_Claydon_property. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So connect with us there. Well, thanks, Caroline. That's been great to talk about this, which I think is a very important subject for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, we need to schedule in that communication date.
Communication date. Yeah. Okay, guys, we'll look out for some great new content coming up. We've got some great interviews and some other podcasts coming up in the next few weeks and Q&As, lots of things. So we will look forward to talking to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.